A determined medical student, a car accident, and a life-changing decision. James, caught between his dreams and responsibilities, was forced to make a great sacrifice. Yet this moment opened unexpected doors in his life. How can a small act of kindness completely transform someone's destiny? If you're ready, let's witness this inspiring story together. James was a medical student preparing for his final exam. Despite years of sacrifices and his family's financial struggles, his determination had brought him closer to his dreams. Relying on financial aid, James worked part-time jobs to avoid burdening his family. However, in his final year, his family insisted he focus solely on his studies, offering him additional support. Though James felt the weight of their sacrifices on his shoulders, their unwavering belief in him kept him going. That morning, James left early to make it to his final exam. Determined not to be late, he caught the first bus. Despite the cold air, he was filled with determination. As he stepped off the bus and walked along a quiet street, the sound of a collision echoed from a nearby intersection. A car had sped into another vehicle, causing the second car to spin out of control and mount the curb. For a moment, everything felt frozen in time. Inside the wrecked car, the driver lay motionless. James's instincts kicked in. He immediately pulled out his phone and called 911. He quickly described the situation and gave them the location. Then, taking careful steps, he approached the vehicle where the driver was trapped. Peering through the window, he noticed the woman inside was unconscious. He tried the door, but it was jammed. James paused briefly, considering his next move, and then carefully broke the window using a nearby rock. Reaching into the car, James checked the woman's pulse and found she was still breathing. He noticed a dislocated shoulder and bleeding on her forehead. Avoiding any movements that might worsen a spinal injury, he quickly gathered fabric scraps from nearby to create a makeshift dressing to stop the bleeding. "Stay calm. An ambulance is on the way. I'm a medical student. We'll get you out of here," he whispered, partly to calm himself as well. He noticed her left wrist was bent at an unnatural angle and supported it without moving her further. A short while later, the sound of sirens pierced the cold morning air. The paramedics arrived swiftly and began assessing the situation. James summarized everything. "She's unconscious, there's a head wound, and her left wrist may be broken. I haven't moved her, but I've controlled the bleeding." The paramedics nodded in acknowledgement as they took over. James stepped back, feeling a mix of relief and hope that his actions had made a difference. The paramedics were taken aback by James's knowledge and quick response. One of them remarked, "Did you say you're a medical student? You're working like a professional." James offered a modest smile, but his thoughts remained focused on the driver. As the woman was carefully placed on a stretcher and loaded into the ambulance, James hesitated for a moment. But an instinct he couldn't ignore pushed him to act. He climbed into the ambulance and continued assisting the paramedics. James monitored the woman's pulse and breathing, kept an eye on her blood pressure, and ensured her condition remained stable as the ambulance sped toward the hospital. His calm and focused demeanor made a crucial difference, helping the team safely deliver her to the emergency room. When they arrived at the hospital, James helped the paramedics push the stretcher into the emergency room. The woman was immediately handed over to the trauma team. James quickly briefed the doctors. "She has an open head wound and a possible fracture in her left wrist. I also noticed mild respiratory issues. I managed to stop the external bleeding, but there's a risk of internal bleeding." The doctors swiftly prepared to take the woman into surgery. James's heart pounded in his chest. While he felt a sense of peace from helping, a pressing realization struck him. His exam was only minutes away. Looking at his watch, the truth hit him like a wave, leaving him frozen in the hospital corridor. He had missed his exam. Sitting on a bench in the waiting area, James's mind raced with conflicting thoughts. Would all the years of effort and sacrifice toward becoming a doctor be derailed by a delayed bus or a single accident? His eyes welled up, but a small voice within reassured him that he had done the right thing. At that moment, a doctor from the trauma team emerged from the doors. Exhaustion mingled with a faint smile on his face as he walked toward James. "Young man," the doctor said, Your quick actions made all the difference. Without your early intervention, the outcome could have been very different. The woman is stable now. The surgery went well, but she'll remain under observation." James felt a wave of relief wash over him as he took a deep breath. Yet the guilt of missing his exam lingered heavily in his chest. As he wrestled with his emotions, the doors to the emergency room swung open again, and an older man rushed in, his voice trembling with panic. "Where's my daughter?" he cried out, his desperation echoing in the room. James immediately understood. This man had to be the woman's father. The older man listened intently as the doctors explained his daughter's condition. Standing a bit further back, James observed the exchange quietly, trying to piece together more about her recovery while avoiding drawing attention to himself. When the father heard that his daughter was on the path to recovery after surgery, tears streamed down his face. Even from a distance, James could feel the indescribable mix of relief and lingering fear radiating from him. Then almost suddenly the man turned to James. His eyes were filled with gratitude and curiosity. "Was it you?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Were you the one who helped my daughter?" James hesitated for a moment, then slowly nodded. "Yes, I did what I could," he replied, offering a shy smile. The man clasped James's hand tightly, his tearful eyes locking with James's. "I can never thank you enough. If it weren't for you, my daughter might not be here right now." The man's words filled James with a mixture of pride and melancholy. While he felt the peace of having made a difference, the weight of missing his exam still hung heavily on him. "I just did what I needed to do," James said humbly. At that moment, a nurse approached James and gently tapped his shoulder. "Young man, the doctors would like to speak with you," she said kindly. Surprised, James followed the nurse toward the doctors, feeling the older man's grateful gaze on his back. The doctors commended him for his actions, explaining that the woman's stabilization was largely thanks to his swift intervention. "Your awareness and quick response were remarkable," one of the doctors said. "I heard you're a medical student. There's no doubt in my mind that you'll make an excellent doctor." James's face flushed and his eyes glistened with emotion. He told the doctor about missing his final exam because of the accident. The doctor's words eased some of his sadness, but the disappointment of missing the exam still weighed on his mind. A short while later, the older man approached James again. "Son," he said, his voice steady and sincere, "it's an honor to meet someone like you. My name is Edward. I feel deeply indebted to you. If you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me." James looked at him in astonishment. Edward's powerful and heartfelt words left no doubt about his sincerity. But James, uncomfortable with the idea of someone feeling indebted to him, replied softly, "Thank you, but I don't need anything. Knowing your daughter is going to be okay is enough for me." Despite James's modest demeanor, Edward was determined to form a connection with him. Before leaving the hospital, Edward handed James a card. The elegant font displayed his name alongside the logo and contact information of a prominent healthcare organization. "Take this, James," Edward said. "You might not need anything now, but who knows what the future holds. Please don't hesitate to reach out." James accepted the card with a faint smile. "Thank you, Edward. I truly appreciate it," he replied. As he slipped the card into his pocket, he thought to himself that he'd likely never use it. He was determined to stand on his own 2 feet. The next morning, James woke up to an email from his school. Learning that there was no chance to make up for his missed final exam hit him like a heavy weight. Just one more chance, he muttered to himself. Yet he knew he had to find a solution without burdening his family any further. That afternoon, James wandered through the bustling city streets, trying to clear his mind. His thoughts were interrupted by the ringing of his phone. The caller ID showed Edward's name. Surprised, James stopped in his tracks. After a moment of hesitation, he answered the call. "Hello, James," Edward began, his tone kind yet purposeful. "It was a privilege meeting you yesterday. I don't mean to intrude, but I'd like to make you an offer." James blinked in surprise. "What kind of offer?" he asked. "Would you like to start as an intern at the healthcare organization I work with?" Edward asked. "As a medical student, this kind of experience could be invaluable for you. Also, he continued, I spoke with your faculty dean. He's a close friend of mine and my daughter's godfather. I shared what happened yesterday and I asked him to reconsider your missed exam. The faculty has agreed to let you take a makeup exam. James stood still, stunned. How did Edward even know he had missed the exam? This offer seemed like the solution to all his problems, but he couldn't shake the feeling that accepting would mean he owed Edward something. He wrestled with his inner voice, realizing that accepting help at this point in his life wasn't wrong. It was necessary. As Edward shared more details, the uncertainty on James's face slowly gave way to a glimmer of hope. Edward had not only offered him an internship but also resolved the issue of his missed exam. The opportunity could be a major step forward in his career. The new doors that life had opened for him reaffirmed the power of doing the right thing no matter the cost. This moment reminded James that every challenge he faced on this path was worth it. If this story touched your heart and you'd like to hear more inspiring stories, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video and leave a comment. Your support helps us share these stories with more people. See you in the next story.